Hello everyone, welcome back. We're continuing our Linux Ubuntu journey, and today we're taking a look at the performance of the Vega 56 in Cyberpunk 2077. We're using the Epic version, launched through the Heroic Games launcher. I've already run a few benchmarks, and the results are exciting, so let's take a look at them right away. The first benchmark runs in 1080p with high graphics settings. We also activated AMD FSR 2.1 as well as frame generation 3.1. We currently have 87 frames per second, and the average frame time is currently 11 milliseconds, with a maximum of about 18 milliseconds. And here we're already past 100 FPS, with an average frame time of 9 milliseconds. Again, this is at 1080p on high settings, with AMD FSR 2.1 and frame generation 3.1 enabled, all running on the AMD Vega 56 on Linux. And there you have it, the results speak for themselves. Cyberpunk 2077 running smoothly on Linux with the AMD Vega 56 holding its own really well. Solid frame rates, clean frame times, honestly a great result for a card of this generation. Now, to be fair, a big part of this is thanks to FSR 2.1 and frame generation doing their job. Native performance would be noticeably lower, but that's exactly what these tools are there for, and on Linux, it's great to see them working this well. Now let's move on to the second benchmark. Same settings as before, 1080p on high, but this time we've turned frame generation off and are running with FSR 2.1 only. Let's see what difference that makes. We're currently sitting at 50 frames per second, with an average frame time of 21 milliseconds and a peak of around 25 milliseconds. And you can really feel the difference. Turning off frame generation has a pretty significant impact. That's a drop of over 50 FPS compared to our previous run, which just goes to show how much work frame generation is actually doing under the hood. And just like in the first benchmark, the FPS climbs towards the end of the run. We're now touching over 60 frames per second. However, we can't hold it there consistently, and it fluctuates between 53 and 64 FPS. So while it's playable, it's not exactly the smoothest experience without frame generation in the mix. For the next test, we're bringing frame generation back, but this time we're stepping things up. We're keeping the same setup as before, but pushing the quality settings all the way up to Ultra. Let's see how the Vega 56 handles that on Linux. And for this one, I'm just gonna let it run and not say a word. I'll be back in a moment, just enjoy the footage. In this last test, we were looking at an FPS range of 70 to 100 FPS, with frame times between 5 and 21 milliseconds. And honestly, looking at those numbers, it's a mixed bag. The FPS range is decent, but that frame time variance of 5 to 21 milliseconds is quite a swing. You definitely feel that inconsistency during gameplay. Personally, I wouldn't play it this way. I'd take the smoother and more consistent numbers from the high settings run any day. But let me know what you think in the comments. For our two final tests, we're switching things up completely. Everything is set to low, and we've capped the frame rate with VSync at 60 FPS, no FSR, no frame generation, just raw native performance. We want to see if Cyberpunk 2077 is actually playable on the Vega 56 without any AI or upscaling tricks involved. As always, the full system specs can be found in the description below. And here are the results, and they're looking really clean. We're seeing absolutely stable numbers around 60 FPS, with the benchmark clocking in at an average of 59.22 FPS to be precise. The frame times are looking great too, sitting at a steady 16.6 milliseconds. Native, no tricks, no upscaling, just the Vega 56 doing its thing on Linux. And honestly, for low preset, it doesn't look half bad either. You'd be surprised how decent it actually holds up visually. Now we're running one more evaluation test to make sure this wasn't a one-off result. For this run, we've bumped the crowd density settings up one notch to put a little more pressure on the system and see if it holds up. And once again, we're hitting 60 FPS on average, this time clocking in at exactly 59.2 FPS. Just like before, the test ran incredibly smooth and the game is absolutely playable. No surprises, no drops, just consistent, reliable performance. So to wrap things up, the Vega 56 on Linux handles Cyberpunk 2077 surprisingly well. With FSR 2.1 and frame generation, you can push well past 100 FPS at 1080p high, and even native at low preset, you're getting a locked, smooth 60 FPS experience. For a card of this generation, running on Linux, that's a solid result. If you want to see more Linux gaming benchmarks and tests like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. There's a lot more coming. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.